Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans dripped in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channels and on X. And we got the biggest comeback and the biggest win of the year for our New York Mets in crunch time, crucial time, life and season on the line. And the Mets came through with the bats. Chris, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. In the first couple of innings of that game, I was just ready for another disappointing outcome. But you know what? These guys rallied, had a sense of urgency, and came through in a huge way. The offense showed up. The bullpen was up to the task. David Peterson, not so much. But you know what? The Mets do have life. And they have life thanks to also the Pittsburgh Pirates as well, who knocked off the Reds yesterday by a score of 4-2, taking care of business there. So, it did look like a completely different team in the Chicago Cubs. When they were playing against the Mets, as we predicted in the pregame, they weren't just going to roll over and die for the Mets to take advantage. They were going to play their hardest, and they did for the better part of, 5, 6, 7 innings there. And then the New York Mets went and took care of business. How about Francisco Alvarez? I talked about it, in the video that I dropped, earlier today. If you missed it, go check it out on my channel. But I talked about I had to spend a couple of minutes towards the end of the video just giving so many props to Francisco Alvarez, who's gone through his trials and tribulations this season, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, from getting demoted to coming back and tearing things up. And just like, when we were feeling like he was on top of the world, I'm sure that, he was feeling the same way. He goes down with an injury, not one injury, but during the rehab assignment, he sustains a second injury. And now he is back and hit the game-winning home run for the New York Mets. Baseball is a funny game. It'll humble you really quick, but guys that persevere and can persevere, like El Troll, get the job done and they end up succeeding. And I'm very happy for him. And that's what I wanted to say. Congratulations to him. He deserves that moment. But guess what? Yesterday is yesterday. We always say it. Today is today. Got to go out there and do it again. Win a ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was amazing what Alvarez did yesterday. In the first inning, not, trying to overframe pitches to let these guys steal bases on will, and actually it did cost us in that inning, was the beginning of what looked like to be a tragic end to the Mets season, as they were just looking terrible. They were throwing the ball around. They did not look focused in the game. Soto missing the fly ball that continued the inning, allowed 2 runs to score, basically started and ended David Peterson's outing, basically. And the fight back and the comeback, where the only way, and we talked about this yesterday, Chris, I said, I don't care if the Mets win 9-7. I don't care anymore. I don't care that, I care that the pitching sucks, at least the starting pitching, but at this point, I just want to win, and I don't care how we get it. Now, I don't want it to be like yesterday every single day, because that's just pure torture, and we've had enough torture throughout this season in this roller coaster season. But what we do hope and we've seen this many times. This season has kind of like engulfed into what we're so used to as the Mets will have a game like yesterday. Now they never had the big. This is the biggest comeback they had all season, but they would win a game like this in a comeback and the offense looked great and pick up their pitching and the bullpen looked really good, and then they'll come out the next day and they'll look like a totally different team. And that's what we have not seen. We haven't seen that win that we had yesterday and then another win similar or at least a dominant performance the next night. That is what we need. And let's be honest, we need it, right? We control our own destiny once again. And, we were texting last night when the game wasn't looking too good. I was rolling into work and and I looked at the score. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like if you didn't feel demoralized as a Met fan, like I had my hands on my head. Like I walked into work, friends, coworkers, we're like, oh, here we go again. Like we just know, like it's just that feeling. Like you could just feel the negativity amongst Met fans. But you know what? They deserved all that negativity early on, but that fifth inning came along and all the good vibes started to come back, right? It was shades of 2024 the way it felt yesterday. And I know a lot of people felt that way. This needs to be the moment where they play like it's the moment. Because if this is not the moment like yesterday, coming back like they did against a good Cubs team, and thank you, Dansby Swanson, for making that error, by the way. When is it going to be the moment? Because if yesterday wasn't the moment, if those good vibes don't transition into today, then it's never happening. And we're probably looking at an offseason of not making the playoffs, in my opinion. But you know what? It starts again tonight. Yesterday was one game. Today's another day, and you got to back it up like you did yesterday.
I think everybody knows that doing, what the Mets did last night is not sustainable from a comeback perspective, right? Like we love comeback wins. You'll have a couple here and there. The Mets haven't had any luck coming back and winning ball games from the eighth inning and beyond. I think they're like 0 for 0 for 67 or something like that this season. But everyone loves a good comeback win, but we know that's not the way that we want to win. And I think that is 100% the key point here when we look at this game right here and what needs to change. Unfortunately, Jonah Tong is coming. Well, fortunately, I should say for Jonah Tong, he's coming off of a really good performance. Over 82 pitches against the San Diego Padres the last time out. But this is the biggest game of his life up until this point because the Mets cannot afford to make any mistakes. And as we are all scoreboard watching with the other game, the Mets or the Pirates and the Reds that's going on, I think it kicked off just about 15 minutes ago. And we'll see what the result of that is with Paul Skeens on the mound for the Pirates. But, it starts with the starting pitching, and the Mets cannot afford from the young guys or for anybody else that they throw up on that mound something to the effect of what David Peterson did last night. That is shameful. That is a debacle. And we will continue to say that David Peterson, with where he's at in the innings category of this season, is not fit to continue starting pitching and starting for this team. He cannot do it. And I think it's a fair question. I have it in my live chat poll right now, whether we all think regular season or playoff time, do we see David Peterson start another ball game for the Mets this season? I would have to say, with what he's shown, you cannot trust him to start another ball game, for this team. Now, he will be coming out of the bullpen and hopefully with less of a workload and less innings pitched, he can be a lot more effective. But it wasn't a matter of getting tired yesterday for David Peterson. He just simply didn't have it from the get-go. You get a 1-0 lead, surrender 2 in the bottom of the first, and then, everything, the wheels fall off in the bottom of the second. And now you're staring at a deficit for the offense to, climb back against. And they did, thankfully, and it resulted in a win. But that's not something that Jonah Tong, Noel McLean, Brandon Sproat, or anybody else that starts a ball game for the Mets can afford to do. And Jonah Tong is a real key point here. If he can at least keep this game close and hold the Cubs offense at bay for the first couple of innings, I consider that a win. And the other factor here is that because David Peterson was so bad yesterday, we had to use like 6 bullpen arms, including Edwin Diaz in the back end for 2 innings. Now, I don't think that Edwin Diaz is not available for any game moving forward. I 2 innings yesterday, cool. If the Mets are in a position they need him today, I bet you Mendoza goes to him. I bet you, because it's this point of the season where everybody's
Diaz
available. For sure. For
uh,
sure. For
today,
sure.
I don't know about today,
If
but
if you are in a one-run ball game and
I
it gets
agree.
to the later stages, maybe they try their luck with Rayleigh because Rayleigh,
Uh,
didn't really throw that
I'm telling you right
often.
now, Chris. What did I say a week ago?
Nah,
Who
man.
is going to come in a big spot because
Helsley's not pitching in the big inning.
it's going to be Helsley.
Hell no.
I'm telling you right now.
Helsley
I'm telling
no.
you right now. If the Mets are winning by a run in the ninth inning, Helsley is going now. Now Diaz might. I don't think he's going to be available, but like I said, I put in Diaz. But I'm telling you right now, Helsley has pitched a little bit better. Now we none of us trust him at all. But I'm telling you right now, if you think the Mets are going to go anywhere in the playoffs, it is not going to be more important. It's going to be more important for Helsley to do something and be a part of this bullpen big time, because I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody in this bullpen. Maybe Raleigh. That's the only guy I trust. Tyler Rogers will be
Big
available.
out for Rayleigh yesterday too. I mean, that was an awesome
PCA.
job.
Yeah.
I think it's PCA striking him
Yep.
out right after relieving Stoto, if I'm not Stoto. Who was it?
Oh no, it
Rogers?
was Rogers. Yeah. Yep.
Rogers, yeah.
Yeah.
I listen, man. I love this coming from Ray. CP can't see Mendy using common sense. Like at the very minimum, I want to make it known that I think both of us would sign up for seeing Edwin Diaz again today, even though he
Sure.
pitched 2 innings yesterday.
Sure. But
But my thing, and I continue to say this, right? This getting cute and trying combinations like the Mets tried the last go around with Manaya and Holmes and switching them around. I'm not like we can't get cute. Like, are you gonna seriously bank your season on counting on Ryan Helsley? I know you have to
he's
get
your
him
biggest
going. I
acquisition.
understand that.
He's
I
your biggest
understand
acquisition.
that. Well, he's a Stearns acquisition. That's first and foremost, and that's probably why they will do that. But what I'm saying is that I'm still gonna say this. I still think until I see otherwise, if this is a close game, I think Edwin Diaz will be available. At least maybe for a matchup purpose of getting at least a hitter out if it comes down to that. And so
Yeah.
you can't play around anymore. You cannot play around. It's 5 games, all hands on deck. Everybody should be available no matter what happened the night prior. So but that's the thing though. So this is going back to the point that I was trying to make is that the last go around, we saw Jonah Tong having a pretty successful time. One of the keys was he was using that third pitch, which was the curveball, very steadily, right? He started to incorporate that a lot more in that start, and he found success with that curveball and throwing 3 pitches instead of just relying on the changeup and the fastball. I'm curious what the game plan for him against the Cubs lineup is today in terms of the pitch usage, but also he got pulled after the 5th inning at only 82 pitches. Now, this bullpen is not well rested given what happened yesterday. And shout out Huascar Brazaban because he provided some much necessary, much needed long relief. I'm curious if Mendoza, if Jonah Tong, and this is a big if he is cruising and if he's hovering around the same situation, do you extend him into the 6th inning or do you replicate what Mendoza and the strategy was the last Jonah Tong start and just hope that the bullpen can still piece it together? That's what I'm watching out for, Rob. And that's going to be a big indicator. Now, what has to happen first and foremost is that Jonah Tong has to get to that position because that was probably the best game that we've seen of Jonah Tong. So can he replicate that is the first question. But the second question is if the same situation of his outing against the Padres comes up, what does Mendoza do there? And that'll tell you a lot about not so much maybe the confidence level, but just the way that Mendoza is going to manage the rest of the 5 games or 4 games that we have after this, as it pertains to, some of the younger pitchers, especially when Brandon spot comes up in the rotation yet again. So there's a lot of what ifs and there's a lot of pressure on Carlos Mendoza right now, given what David Peterson did. And every game is a must-win game from here on out. And if it's not, and if you don't win it, you're hoping that the Diamondbacks, who won also yesterday, by the way, against the Dodgers in the late night cap, and also the Reds lose. And so that's I look at that, I'm like, I just can't see you telling me that anybody in this bullpen is not available tonight. It just can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, what you have to decide is, can they actually be good coming in from the bullpen? Like, that's the other thing you have to decide too. Just because the names that you want to come in this game doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily pitch well. Like, we know Tyler Rogers has a rubber arm, but it doesn't mean he's going to pitch well. Same thing goes for Stanek, right? Stanek has been better, and Stanek was pumped on the mound when he had that big strikeout. He those type of guys. But again, this is the issue. Like, who do you really, 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 really trust other than Edwin Diaz? Like, there's nobody I could say really for sure. But and Rogers for okay, but he's been a hit or miss at times where. And again, when it comes to Jonah Tong, the wind better be blowing in tonight because he's a fly ball pitcher. So if it's not, we're gonna have a long day. I'm telling you right now, because yesterday the wind was very weird. We know how it was blowing side to side, then it was blowing in, then it was blowing out. And it was look, Wrigley Field is a different animal when it comes to the wind. Hopefully the wind's blowing in, and yeah, that might hurt our bats a little bit, but it's going to hurt the Cubs bats as well. But here's the difference. What you noticed, the Mets had a lot of big home runs. The Cubs played a lot of small ball, situational hitting. They did a lot of that yesterday. So they don't necessarily need the home run ball to win ball games. The Mets, I feel like they haven't been good enough to string a lot of hits together. And I don't think they can win that way at this point. At this point, I don't think so. I think they need that 2-3 run homer to get back or to take leads in games. I think that's the only way they're going to get a bunch of runs together. Two totally different teams here. And, finally, the Mets took advantage of a mistake from the Cubs and they capitalized on it. We haven't seen that a lot, and that's a good sign. But obviously everybody sees the lineup. We see Tyrone Taylor in the lineup. We know Jose Siri was DFA'd. Were you surprised by that? Because I know we were talking about it. I think it was last week. I think we were talking about it in regards to Tyrone Taylor. If he
It
don't
was just yesterday that we were talking about it, the pregame.
yeah. Who was going to get sent down? I was a little shocked that it was Siri getting DFA'd. I thought it would have been like Mauricio or something like that, just to be sent down, even though minor leagues are basically over. But are you a little shocked that Siri was DFA'd? Because that's another mistake by David Stearns.
Yeah, I don't think I'm shocked by this decision. I mean, maybe like you said, it could have been a guy like Mauricio who has not really shown um much as of recent, I guess you could say, because he hasn't been playing at all. But and let's take a look at Mauricio here. I'm on Fangraphs. Yeah, he has one option left remaining. And so does Acuna. So no, I'm not really shocked, but I think it makes more logical sense than them DFAing a guy like Cedric Mullins, like who's a veteran, who, is a David Stearns acquisition. And that was the big point that we were talking about yesterday, because, we heard that Tyrone Taylor could get activated as soon as today when we were talking about in the pregame yesterday. And we were like, well, if the decision's between Siri and Mullins, we have to imagine that they're going to go ahead and let go of Siri because, first of all, with Carson Bench coming up next season, I'm assuming he's going to be in play for the starting center field job for the New York Mets right out of the gates. That's what he's done in the minor leagues. There's really not much roster room for Siri anyways, even though he has one more year left on his deal and that controllability. And Cedric Mullins, I think the Mets still view as a bigger asset to this team, coupled with the fact that he's a David Stearns acquisition. That would just be a terrible look no matter what if they DFA'd a Stearns acquisition at the deadline, before the playoffs even started. So, I'm not shocked, actually. I don't think that surprised me. I don't think that threw me in for a loop. I think that they tried to rush Siri back no matter what. But let's be honest, there's just so many flaws with Siri's game as it is, especially offensively, for him to even think about contributing to this team or for the Mets to even think about him contributing to this team. And you don't even need him for late inning pinch running situations because you still have Luis Angel Acuna, who we saw do that and swipe a bag yesterday. And that's a separate point, too, that I want to make is that when you have a pinch runner late in the game, how about we send the guy before 2 outs comes up? Right? Because your veteran can't lay down a bunt in Starling Marte. And then, PCA made a good play on Jeff McNeil's, soft line drive to center field. And then you have 2 outs with Alvey coming up. It didn't end up mattering because Alvarez just put the ball over the wall. But I'd like to see Acuna get in scoring position or try to at least. I know a lefty was on the mound and it was tough, but earlier in the inning. So, no, to circle back on your question, I'm not surprised that it's Siri. Even with the year of controllability left, I just think that the Mets understood that cutting ties now is better than trying to make things work, even given the year, because I don't even think that he would even make the roster next year, to be honest. I just don't think that he would, even given the defensive upside. The future of center field in that position belongs to Carson Bench, and then you'll have Tyrone Taylor probably as well. So, yeah, I'm not surprised.
All right, before we get more into the lineup in the game, Jonathan gave you a super chat on your channel. Just want to read it out. Is this real or is still a slow blood letting shades of last year that we aren't dead yet? If there is a collapse, who pays the price for this? What do you think, Chris?
I don't know okay, so shades of last year that we aren't dead yet. I mean, are we going to infer that based off of one game? I mean, the standings say that we aren't dead, right, Jonathan? The standings say that we aren't dead, but is anything convincing about this team with the way that they've been playing as of recent, especially the National Series? My answer is no. But the second part of your question is the most intriguing thing. If there's a collapse, and if the collapse is already here, like this Mets team has basically already collapsed. Now it's just, are they going to put the finishing touches on the collapse or not? And that is by not making the playoffs. And so I'm assuming you're asking, if the Mets don't make the playoffs, who pays the price for this? That's like, there's multi layers to this. First of all, I think if that happens, Pete Alonso pays the price if he wants to come back to the Mets, right? I think that's the first person who will pay that price. He won't be paying a price because someone around this league will pay him what he wants. I have no doubt about that. Rob, I know that you have maybe some doubts about it, but I don't. I think a team will give him the multi-year deal, AAV, that he wants. So that's, in terms of keeping the core together, I think that Alonso would pay the price. Second, Mendoza is going to be here. A lot of people still don't believe that if the Mets missed out on the playoffs, that Mendoza is going to be here. Do you think he's going to be here if the Mets miss the playoffs?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the second guy to pay the price maybe is David Stearns. And the only thing that will happen to make him pay the price is that Steve Cohen will basically say and demand, whether it was in the cards already or not, you got to go out there and get an acting GM.
Yep.
And there has to be a hierarchy here with someone underneath you, to go ahead and navigate this off season, because you can't help but question, if you're Steve Cohen, the philosophy of David Stearns if this team misses the playoffs. You know what I mean? Although the confidence is still probably high in that situation with Steve Cohen and David Stearns, it's got to be at least a little bit less. To what degree, I don't know. But I think that a GM in the offseason would be in the cards. And I think that that call would directly be coming from Steve Cohen himself, because at the end of the day, it's still his team. What he says goes, and he's actively involved. Whether he wants to play it off like he's not, he's very actively involved with the decision-making of this team, David Stearns or not. So I think Alonso first, David Stearns second. And David Stearns, we're not looking at a firing here. We're looking at someone just like working alongside him as a GM, or I guess just should say underneath him. That's it, really.
Yeah, I think paying a price would be players, like you said, Alonso, and I just think that the Mets are not going to pay Alonso what I think another team is going to pay him. I think I think the Mets have a number and amount of years, and I don't think it's going to come close to the other teams that are going to be looking for a first baseman as well. And I think it's going to be Nimmo and McNeil that are going to pay the price as well. I think the Mets would get rid of McNeil because Ryan Clifford's right up there, ready to come up as well. And, depending on what you might do at first base, if Ryan Clifford would be a first baseman if you don't keep Pete Alonso, because we all know Pete Alonso is not going to sign in, November. He's going to sign like late January. Like we know what he's going to do. It's going to be late. He's going to be the final top free agents on the market because he's a Boris client. That's just what happens. Unless somebody shocks him with an offer, he ain't going off the board anytime soon. So I think Nimmo, McNeil, and Pete Alonso. And I think it's a big. If you don't make the playoffs, you have to roll heads. You have to make roster changes, like not just let's not have Siri here, or let's not bring back bench players, like we're not going to bring back Cedric Mullins, like super shit like that. I'm talking about major roster shakeup. You have to do it. And unfortunately, Pete Alonso's in that situation where he had to have a long-term deal. That's on him. He could have signed it a couple of years ago, and it's also on the Mets. Jeff McNeil's contract's about to end. That's it. It is what it is. And if you can find a suitor to pay most of Nimmo's contract, you do that because you're going to have Carson Bench and Ryan Clifford who are going to be very cheap. That's going to lower the payroll by a massive amount. And that's something you have to look at as well. And you know who's going to be the scapegoats? It's not going to be Mendoza. It's not going to be Stearns. It's going to be Hefner, Chavez, and Barnes. But you know why? Because the Mets have been calling for that for months, years. And they're going to do that because the pitching has been bad. The hitting hasn't been great this year. You get rid of those three guys, guess what's going to happen? Met fans going to get, oh, thank God, finally. And they're going to act like everything's going to be okay with the new hires because everybody just assumes these coaches are the end all be all, and they're the scapegoats in a bigger plan. That's all it is at that point. So, Jonathan, thank you for the super chat on Chris's channel. And, when it comes to the lineup, no Beatty. That's interesting. And I'm a little surprised by that. And I know people in the comments were talking about that earlier. I would have sat Jeff McNeil after last night and what Jeff McNeil never played like that. That is not Jeff McNeil as we know him. I know he hasn't been, he's not, the best, Ray Ordonez or anything like that or Gato Alfonso, but you can't make those errors. You cannot make those errors in those big spots. Like that ball, was like 20 feet from first base. Like, what are you doing? Like either hold the ball or just soft toss it to first base if you don't think you can get that double play. To rush it and cause that type of error and multiple errors in this game is a problem. I would have sat McNeil and played Beatty because look, they're both lefties, so it's not like you're worrying about matchup situations. I think Beatty has more potential to hit the ball over the wall than Jeff McNeil, and Beatty has been pretty damn good against lefties, and McNeil has been somewhat not doing as well with the bat. What I don't understand that. I mean, you're batting Jeff McNeil 8th. It's not like you're batting him 6th or anything like that. I would have played Brett Beatty today. Brett Beatty deserves to play, and he should play over Jeff McNeil today. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think that, they will advertise it as a matchups basis kind of thing because Jeff McNeil does slightly, by a slight margin, minus maybe the OPS, which is 100 points higher versus lefties as a left-handed bat than Brett Beatty's. But, I think that this team is still going to continuously show you that and minus the pitching, because they are forced to rely on young pitching because of the rest of the veterans, that the lineup, they will continue to rely on these veterans in the lineup. And Starling Marte continuously creeping his way up this lineup, now batting, what is it, cleanup? DHing, and him playing left field yesterday is just, that is a big indication. And Jeff McNeil, that was a very uncharacteristic game. I agree. Jeff McNeil is usually solid, right? Defensively when you need him, both at second base and in the outfield. I know that he, has the ability to make mistakes in the outfield, given that he's an infielder naturally. But, he's been solid. He plays hard, and those are just uncharacteristic errors that you see from Jeff McNeil. We haven't really seen much of this season. So I think it's just as simple as looking at the lefty-lefty splits between both of these lefty bats and Jeff McNeil and Brett Beatty. I do agree with you. I'd rather just see Brett Beatty. He had a very good opposite field hit yesterday to start the rally, to set up actually Francisco Alvarez's 2-run home run in the 8th inning. It was a very good swing. I don't think he intended to hit it the opposite way, but he did, and he got rewarded for it. And there's a lot more power potential, but I just think that the Mets right now, if there's a choice between McNeil and, the rest of the young guys and Vientos and Beatty, put it simple, right? Vientos and Beatty probably were not options of the trio here because Jeff McNeil is the veteran. And I just think that's the philosophy that they have in mind. This is not a new thing, though, right? This is not a new thing with this Mets team. They love the veterans no matter what it takes, unless they absolutely have to, go with young guys like they have going tonight in Jonah Tong. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I also don't think that Brett Beatty has been that good against lefties, to be quite honest. He's hitting 233 against them this season with a 620 OPS. He has hit them okay. But I'm not, even though I would have probably went with Beatty in this situation, this scenario, I don't think that it's that big of a drop off for me to be like overly mad. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to
Yeah,
win you or lose you a ball game, in my humble opinion.
yeah,
My
yeah.
personal opinion, I should say.
Like I think it, obviously based on the numbers and obviously matchups, they're both lefties. I think you're gonna trust the veteran over the young guy. But ultimately, Beatty's not in the lineup because Marte's hitting, and that's why Marte's in the lineup. If Marte wasn't in the lineup, you DH Vientos, you put Beatty at third, you solve your issue. But because Starlin Marte has been really good, what is he has a 10-game hitting streak? He's been one of your better quality, base, hitters in your lineup, and that's the reason why he's batting cleanup tonight, and he's been killing lefties as well. So again, it's a nice problem to have, but I was a little shocked. But again, you're gonna trust your veteran to not make those mistakes again at second base today. Like that's where you're
I
hoping
would
for.
have I would have rather just seen Brett Beatty in this lineup. It shouldn't be Brett Beatty versus Jeff McNeil. It should be Brett Beatty versus Mark Vientos. I would have almost rather seen Brett Beatty in this lineup at third base over Vientos because I'm not confident in Vientos' defense. I'm not. I
Yeah,
think
but
you're
I
sacrificing a
don't think
ton there.
Mendoza cares. I don't think Mendoza cares about the defense right now. Honestly, I think that he knows he has to score runs. I don't. Who like we know this. The Mets are not winning a 2-1 game today. We all know that. Like they're gonna probably have to score 6 runs tonight. Honestly, I think it's
Vientos hasn't really been like let's be honest.
you know
Vientos
what,
has his
because
problems
he has
offensively
that
too.
potential against a lefty. I think that's the reason why. I know.
I mean, we'll
Look, I
see.
agree. I agree with you. I agree, but that's just this is how it goes. You know what I'm saying? So I listen. We could all look like fools tonight, and we can score 10 runs, and the offense looks great, the defense plays well, and we win a ball game. But what we're talking about, it should not come up tomorrow as the problem for this team, right? McNeil can't make another stupid error because then we're going to talk about the Beatty situation. If Vientos makes an error or doesn't hit, guess who we're going to be talking about? It should have been Beatty over Vientos. So again, once the Boyd comes out of the game, Beatty is probably going to come up in some situation anyway. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I think you got another super chat. Let me just hold on. Oh, there we go. All right.
Salute to Jonathan. Salute to Jonathan.
Yeah, but
Last one. Do you honestly believe that Stearns would have gone after Soto and Alonso if it wasn't for Cohen? If not, that's telling. He used to be a small market GM. Rob knows about him going cheap things. You know what? I will say this. I will say yes, that I do think that he would have still gone after them because guess what? They got Pete Alonso down from a higher contract that he wanted for more years and higher AA, not higher AAV because he ended up getting 30, but like higher years. Who do you think was the one that orchestrated that? That was David Stearns. Like David Stearns led that entire negotiation, got him down to that 2-year deal to opt out after year 1. So yes to Pete Alonso, because again, the deal that Alonso ended up signing was maybe the AAV was pushed by Steve Cohen. That's what got Alonso to actually put, pen to the paper and Boris to agree to it. But I think the overall construction of the contract was definitely the mastermind of David Stearns, if you want to call him a mastermind at that point. And Juan Soto, I also like. There's no GM in this league that would not want Juan Soto on their team. I truly believe that no matter how cheap they are, no matter what, you have to do your due diligence in terms of trying to get a guy like that in the doors, especially if you're in the New York market. Now, Steve Cohen also was probably the one that ended up saying we are going to go the extra 10, 20, whatever percent needed to finalize that deal. And I do think that the Mets would have been out if David Stearns was the one that had the final say in that negotiation. Soto probably would have ended up going elsewhere, whoever the next highest bidder was, and I completely forget about that. So yes, Stearns was definitely in on Juan Soto. To what extent Steve Cohen needed to step in, and once that dollar figure got to a certain amount, yeah, I also believe that too. I just don't know what dollar figure that is because that's just such an obscure and unique and mega contract that he signed. So I guess I can say yes to as it pertains to your question, Jonathan, yes to both, but to a certain extent, Steve Cohen obviously, yes, did have to step in and push those deals along, 100%.
Yes, Steve Cohen definitely stepped in late with Pete Alonso because of the fan pressure. Obviously, I think Stearns had control over it the whole time, and then when Steve Cohen needed to step in, he did. I think Juan Soto was 100% Steve Cohen. I think from start to finish, I think it was all Steve Cohen. I think when you get a player like that, when you get the numbers you were talking about with Juan Soto, David Stearns takes a backseat to that. Like he might have, detailed the contract with Steve Cohen to, manipulate certain things in the contract to make Juan Soto say yes. But it was all Steve Cohen's show when it came to Juan Soto. So Jonathan, once again,
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, and just to put the final touch on that is that because Steve Cohen has the relationship with Boris, like he has
Correct.
that relationship already established, so that also throws a little bit of that's a factor in that as well. So
Yep. So listen, guys, the fact that the Mets won yesterday and it was dramatic fashion, big home run by Francisco Alvarez, we're still seeing signs of bad defense, bad situational hitting, and and bad pitching. Let's be honest. David Peterson got 4 outs yesterday, and that can't happen. And you're right about that. Kodai Senga needs to start over David Peterson. Whenever that start happens, and it's probably going to be either the final 2 games of the Miami series, it's got to be Kodai Senga over David Peterson. Like I actually trust Kodai Senga a little bit more than I do David Peterson. Like I don't trust Kodai Senga to be dominant and to be successful, but I think he would give us 4 innings. Honestly, I think he would give us 4 innings and not the crap that David Peterson has. And hopefully those last 2 games of the Miami series don't mean much. Maybe, I hope it doesn't. Because if it does, it's a problem because the Mets are really gonna have to figure out, like, you can't go Kodai Senga, David Peterson for the final 2 games. You just can't do that. Like that's gonna annoy the hell out of me. Nolan McLean is gonna be set up for game 1. That's why he's pitching tomorrow. If you do the math, he will be pitching quote unquote game 1 of the postseason in the wild card series. That's why they're setting him up and pushing him to tomorrow. And obviously, it's an important game for us to win, but also it sets him up for game 1 of the postseason. What do you do, Chris? Obviously Jonathan pitches tonight, and I think it really determines, like, if Jonathan is probably, it might be his last start, but it could be the Miami game because of the way it just sets up. But I don't think he can start again just based on, there's no more days off. What are your thoughts on the situation? We know you already said Peterson, no, he's done in the rotation. Do you have to throw Kodai Senga? Because again, we still don't know what Kodai Senga is. He available? Or is he not? Like, we still don't have that.
Did you see the latest report on him?
I did not.
According to DeComo and a bunch of other reporters, according to Carlos Mendoza, he actually said this himself in his live bullpen session down in Florida. His velocity was down, and it was just an okay, quote unquote, live BP session. And they saw some things that they didn't like. And so DeComo basically threw in the fact that there's a chance that the Mets decide not to roll with Kodai Senga in any capacity before season's end. So, yeah, there you go. There it is from Dolo too. So,
oh God,
yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I think that would be a terrible
you
look.
have to go to Peterson
then.
Or you throw Manaea out there instead of him in the bullpen and piggybacking off of Clay Holmes. Because if you pitch him, let's say the second to last game of the year, he'll be available for game 3. Along with Clay.
So let's go through this. Let's go through since we're here, we might as well just go through this, right? Let's look at the schedule. Tomorrow is McLean. Thursday, Friday is going to be the Mets are undecided for Friday, apparently, right? So who do we think it's going to be Friday?
Sproat goes tomorrow, right? No, McLean goes tomorrow.
No, McLean. So it'll probably be Sproat Friday.
Yeah, and then Saturday it should be
Manaea Holmes or Holmes Manaea.
You might have to split them up for both games if David Peterson's not going to pitch anymore and Senga's not available. You got to split them up.
I mean, I can see them. Imagine how wild it would be to use an opener.
You know what?
Like an opener not named like Manaea or
honestly,
whoever.
I get Davinsky up here. Honestly, these guys have been good. I know that's a rough. I mean, you can't lose and miss the playoffs by saying, "Oh, you had an opener with Davinsky." But again, if you trust the Holmes Manaea tag team together, don't break it up. Like, honestly, you'll have an off day on Monday if you make the playoffs, so you don't have to worry about giving rest.
I'd go Brazo like Dolo's saying. I'd go Brazovan as an opener.
Okay, I'm not mad at that, but you know what? I would actually bring up Davinsky because he's pitched really well for us in those situations. He can give you 3-4 innings. I know Brazovan has been good in those spots as well. Man, that's man. I tell you, what a waste Kodai Senga is, man. I tell you that. I mean,
That's terrible.
is he not injured? Like they haven't said anything about an injury. So if it's
Now
not
they're
an
saying
injury,
he's healthy. They're saying he's
they,
healthy, but they believe that the
I just don't
heat
understand.
of Florida could have been a contributing factor. So I'm
Why
like,
didn't they just bring him
really?
to Syracuse?
Well, I mean, he'll be pitching in Florida anyways. I mean, albeit it'll be in an indoor stadium, but like, you know what I mean. So you know what I mean. I don't know. I don't know.
The Heat.
It's yeah, of all excuses, the heat is what we're using. So it's you can't rely on that. I'd almost like just same thing with David Peterson not being reliable, me not having confidence, going into yesterday's start. The same thing is that I'd rather just use the opener. If we have to go ahead and use Brazaban or Davinsky, so be it. I'd rather them be confident in that decision than go with uh a miracle and putting Kodai Senga out there if they deem him not ready. Like it's sad to say that this Mets team is in this situation, but that's all that we can say at this point. Would you not use? I mean, maybe someone has to pitch on short rest. Maybe they do that. I don't know.
Lovely. Yeah, no, that's all right. Senga will be available for the playoffs. Don't worry. Oh my god, this is ridiculous. For all the nonsense we heard from this organization about Kodai Senga, he is the weakest, vulnerable, fragile pitcher I've seen. This guy cannot pitch on normal rest. This guy is constantly hurt. When he does get hurt, it takes him longer than anybody else with similar injuries to come back. And then when he does come back, well, my arm is not with my body is not with my legs. Like it's all excuses. Like if you're not injured, you just suck. How about that? You're just not a very good pitcher. You never adjust on the fly. You throw the same pitches in similar counts. You don't throw your ghost fork for strikes, and everybody knows that now. And now you're just a below average pitcher. And that's a joke. And you know what? That is another failed situation by the Mets organization. You try to get better Japanese pitchers, and it's not your fault. You tried with these guys, but Kodai Senga in 2023 had no pressure. And it was easy throwing him every 7 days when the Mets didn't need to win. They were out of it. So it was perfect for him. And everybody believed in it. And he fell on his face. And a lot of people have egg on their faces. And it's unfortunate that the Mets have to go through this with a guy who is healthy, by the way. And no offense to anybody, but Tyler McGill's injury was huge for the New York Mets. Like, I know Tyler McGill is not special or anything like that, but he could have been useful in this situation. Like, honestly, even if it was for 2 or 3 innings, could have been very useful. So, I don't know, man. We're going to have an opener in game 162. I can't wait for that. That's going to be – and we might need that game. Ooh, lovely.
Yeah. It's not a situation or position that anybody wants to be in, dude. It's not.
Chris, you got another super chat. You want to read it?
You have to admit it's fitting that Alcantara is pitching, knowing how they've killed us historically late in the season. You guys rock. Yeah, I mean,
they also saw it too, so it wasn't just all about the Mets.
Well, right, yeah, correct. But I mean, yeah, he's penciled in to go that series, right?
Yeah, tomorrow on Friday.
Yeah, so
they pushed them up. They pushed them back just to pitch.
Well, there's your off-season edition right there for a move that David Stearns can actually make to better this rotation.
Yeah, I doubt that. I truly. We should have did
it's
that.
Wishful thinking.
I take Alcantara over probably every one of these pitches except for McLean. To be honest with you, to be quite honest, like honestly. I know it's like, oh, you're going to trade Tong and Sproat. Yeah, I would have, because we hope Sproat is actually as good as Alcantara, right? McLean could be, and he's going to be a part of this rotation, but Alcantara should have been here. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit the price. I'm so sick of the price. Like, we have minor leaguers dying. We have prospects dying in the minors. We have prospects that don't play and sit on the bench. Acuna plays once a week and is a pinch runner, and Mauricio never plays. Like, you could have put a package together, and Alcantara has been damn good since the All-Star break. So again, you know what? Alcantara better not be the reason why the Mets don't. I mean, the Mets are the reason why they wouldn't make the playoffs. But if Alcantara pitches
Dominated the Mets last go around in Citi Field, though.
why wouldn't he? Of course he would. And you know what? He'll probably dominate on Friday. Now that doesn't mean the Mets will lose, but you don't want game 160 to be dominated by a guy who you could have probably got at the deadline. You just didn't want to. And everybody's like, oh, well, nobody else got him. Yeah, well, the Mets just, stand in line in that aspect. Again, it is what it is. It's too late. We can't do anything about it. He'll probably dominate this lineup because that's what Alcantara does. He's damn good. Well, the Mets, I just hope they figure it out because, there's going to be too many questions and a lot of, questions and a lot of answers that we won't have to why this team missed the playoffs. But again, tonight's another night. You're coming off a great win. This was the moment type of win, Chris, that we needed, that we wanted. It felt like, I don't think anybody didn't feel like, whoa, where did this come from? Like, because nobody was expecting this. It was 6-1. We were all, killing this team. They're buried, done. That's all we ever seen. Like that, we were texting back and forth. I had group chats going back and forth. It was nuts. But they found the way. They come back, their biggest comeback of the year in their biggest game of the year, and they took care of their own business. They picked up the pitching. The bullpen was outstanding, but they got to do it again tonight. Like, they got to come out rolling tonight. I want to see crooked numbers early. I don't want to be playing this game where, the Cubs go ahead and we have to come back again. Start out early. We did yesterday, just the one run, but it started off nice. They got to do it again, Chris. And that's the only way I think, they can continue this momentum that they had from yesterday.
Yeah, give Tong a lead. I agree. I mean, hopefully Tong can replicate, and there you go. Pirates are up 1-0 on the Reds right now. And hopefully the Dodgers realize that they could put that NL West to bed as well here and get a win because I don't know what they're doing. I mean, with the Diamondbacks, because the Diamondbacks do hold the tiebreaker in terms of the divisional records because the Mets just simply don't want to beat the Washington Nationals or the Miami Marlins. So that's all fun and good, I guess. But yeah, I agree. I think it's going to come down to Jonah Tong. It's going to come down to a start. Comeback wins are great. They're electric. They're exciting, but that's not how you want to win, especially down, the stretch of the season with young guys on the mound. Get this guy a lead. And Mendoza better have a game plan of multiple scenarios of however Jonah Tong looks around that 4th and 5th inning, maybe even the 6th inning if he's efficient enough, and decide who's available and who's not. Because I'm telling you, going back to that, if we see Helsley in a situation where we're up 1 or 2 runs and he comes in this game and he blows it, I am, regardless if I do a post game today or tonight, I don't know if I am. It's kind of 50-50 right now. I might, so be on the lookout for that. But if it has to come down to the pregame tomorrow and we're talking about what happened tonight and it's Helsley, I'm going to have some words for Carlos Mendoza. I will have some words for Carlos Mendoza because that is gambling with your season on the line. So that's all I got to say. Every game is a must-win game from here on out. Hopefully we get some outside help. It's a shame that the Mets are in this position to begin with because the way this season started, we should have already been clinched. And now we have to sweat out the rest of the regular season just like we did last season. But maybe the same type of magic happens down the stretch. Hopefully. There's some different vibes about this team rather than what we saw in 2024, but you never know. I'm not going to say the slogan, you got to believe, because quite frankly, I still don't really believe, but this team can make me believe a little bit more with the win tonight and securing the series and trying to go for the sweep tomorrow. So let's go Mets. Those are my final thoughts. I got nothing else.
There you go, guys. So it's not you got to believe, it's kind of believe. That's the new slogan for our New York Mets. But listen, Jonah Tong, give us at least a really good 5 innings. If you're rolling, like Chris said, I mean, it's going to be a big decision. I think you have to roll with the better arms. There's nobody like, obviously you can use an arm that you might trust and out of the bullpen coming after Tong. But if he's doing well, don't take him out. If he's at 80 pitches, don't take him out. Let him roll. Have guys available, ready to go just in case if he, puts a couple of runners on. But if he's rolling, I think you have to get him to 90 pitches at least. And again, them 90 pitches can be 4 innings. You just don't know. But if you can give us 5 1/3, 5 2/3 in 90 pitches, I take that. I mean, it just helps your bullpen and it limits your choices of bullpen arms that you have to use. But don't worry, Helsley's going to be in this game. I tell you, I don't know if it's going to be the 9th, but he's definitely going to be in this game. And I just feel it. Like I feel it. I felt it yesterday after they didn't use it, and I'm like, Helsley's going to be the guy to make or break this game somewhere or another in the later innings or in the 9th inning. But I truly think he's going to be in the 9th inning. If the Mets have a lead, he's going to be. I mean, that is what his job was prior to the Mets getting him. I said it from the beginning. I think him not pitching in the 9th in safe situations actually hurt him. No excuses for him, but I think it hurt him. I think that extra motivation, that extra energy level, that testosterone-driven closers that we always see, I think that might mean something to him. And it shows trust with Mendoza and Helsley. And let's be honest, guys, we're going to need them if we keep going further in this season and into the playoffs. We're going to need them. So I would be shocked if Helsley is in the 9th, but if not, as long as we win a ball game, I don't really care, guys. So with that said, thank you for tuning in to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X. TBD if there will be a postgame with Chris and maybe solo or with somebody else, but tune in, check in for that just in case. Guys, let's go Mets. 5 games to go. The Mets got their win. They're up 1 game. The Reds are losing right now. Let's see if it continues, guys. Let's go Mets, guys. Have a great night and enjoy the game.
Let's go Mets.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood.